Good evening and welcome to the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners meeting, July 19th, 2023. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We do have all of our commissioners present this evening. I would ask you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to announce that all public sessions of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners are electronically recorded, filed, and posted to the Township website for public access. At this time, I'll ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to review our public virtual meeting rules.
Thank you. The public, virtual, and in-person meeting rules are as follows. Courtesy of the floor for non-agenda items will be at the beginning and end of the agenda. Public comment will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. For all listed agenda items, the board president will call for courtesy of the floor prior to the Board of Commissioners taking action on that specific agenda item. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. You will be asked to state your name and address for the record and may then proceed with asking your question. For those participating virtually, please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid any background noise that may cause interference during the meeting. The chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address into the chat box. The staff member monitoring GoToMeeting will then unmute your microphone, and you will have the opportunity to comment or ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'd also like to announce that the Board of Commissioners met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss legal and personnel matters. This time I'll move on to agenda item 4, courtesy of the floor, which is opportunity for any member of the public to address our board on any non-agenda items. Is there anyone present who'd like to address the board this evening? Is there anyone online? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll move on to agenda item 5, presentations. Our first presentation this evening is Battle of the Badges event for Pediatric Cancer Foundation of the Lehigh Valley. And I'll ask our Police Chief, Glenn Dorney, to please introduce this presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. If I could have Sergeant Grozier and Captain Brown come up front. We have a presentation as we reported back about a month ago, and actually Chief Marks from Whitehall Township Police Department's in the crowd as well to assist. We held our first annual Battle of the Badges, which was a softball game between the Whitehall Police Department and South Whitehall Police Department over at Coca-Cola Park. And the proceeds were going to the Lehigh Valley Pediatric Cancer Foundation. And we have 2 representatives here tonight, Susan Christine and Anne Marie Markowitz, to come up here, and we'd like to give a official presentation of our big fake check for $9,000 that was raised during the charity event. So if Sergeant Grozier would be able to bring that up, we'd like to present that officially to our representatives, and maybe we can get a couple pictures. But it was a great afternoon. The weather held out for our game, not the Iron Pigs game, but our game. We won't talk about the score with Chief Marks here, but it was a very good game, and it was fun had by all.
We'll give you a real check that is actually. Don't try to pass that one. Thanks very much. We've had a great partnership. Treatment that, you know, it's the worst thing. Officers to give back to our great what you're doing. It's a fantastic organization that you run. Oh, thank you very much. And it's a great opportunity for our officers to give back to our community. And you guys are a great conduit to allow us to help do that. So we thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you to Chief Marks for being here this evening.
for having me.
And our second presentation this evening is recognition of two Chiefs Award recipients for the Youth Law Enforcement Academy. And again, Chief Dorney, if you would introduce this presentation.
All right, thank you very much. If Noah Smith and Emmy Hudak could come up front, we would also like Sergeant Grozier and Captain Brown to come up as well. This is just a kind of a highlight to show two Chiefs Award recipients that we had during our 1-week youth law enforcement program. Some of you were there for the graduation. I think this is just a great opportunity for our community to see kind of the awards that come out of that. We have two great kids here from the township that spent a week with us that did some fantastic things that week. And one of the ways that they earn this award is by always doing the right thing when nobody's looking. One of the things we harp on is integrity for the future. And the two young individuals that are in front of us today, every time that any officer was around them looking, they didn't know we were watching. They were always looking out for their fellow classmates. They were very polite and they said, thank you. They asked questions. They were very engaged in the activities of the week. And they were just exceptional examples of what our community kids are. So we wanted to make sure that we get them in front of you as the Board of Commissioners and our public to show the awards and the reward, quite frankly, for us of having two of our young individuals from our community that received these awards. So I want to thank them publicly for their hard work and their dedication during that week and just being overall great kids and bright futures ahead of them.
Congratulations to both of you. Thank you, Chief Dorney, and all of our officers who are involved with the youth camp. Thank you for working with our young people in the township and introducing them to law enforcement. Moving on to agenda item 6, we have our meeting minutes from the July 5th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meetings have been distributed to the board. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. I'll second it.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item 7, ordinances. We have a motion requesting permission to proceed with advertising of said ordinance, an ordinance of the Township of South Whitehall, County of Lehigh, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending and adopting an amended purchasing policy, and to provide for a repealer clause, retention of rights to enforce severability clause, and an effective date. I'll ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to introduce.
Thank you. So the purchasing policy ordinance outlines the ways in which purchases and payments for expenditures of the township are authorized, as well as the ways in which public funds may be spent. It's used as a guideline for the standards and procedures that township employees who are involved in purchasing goods and services on the township's behalf must adhere to. The purchasing policy was last adopted on February 1st, 2017, so it's been 6 years. Township staff felt it was necessary to update the policy as the township evolves and grows, as well as all the external economic factors that have happened since 2017. So purchasing and executive departments have worked together to update the purchasing policy. Policies included for your review. To give a brief summary of the changes, it increases the approval thresholds for purchase orders and for other approvals required by township staff and management. I would like to point out that, again, those thresholds are under the statutory guidelines set by the Commonwealth. It confirms blanket purchase orders will be approved by resolution at the beginning of the fiscal year. Confirms the process for capital purchases, sole source purchases, and emergency purchases. I will note that capital purchases still must come through the Board of Commissioners, and capital purchases are defined as any purchase over $5,000. Provides for a use of a vendor portal to modernize the accounts payable process, provides for the use of procurement cards to be approved in a separate policy, and it revises the provisions guiding employee ethics and conduct regarding purchasing on behalf of the township. We used the recent Commonwealth policy as a guide in order to develop our own policy. So with that, I would seek a motion to advertise the ordinance for adoption.
Very good, Tom. Thank you for that introduction. It's an excellent, excellent policy. Open it up to the board if there's any comments or questions. Are there any from, oh, go ahead.
We've had a little bit of comments on this on the Finance Committee meeting over the last year, and it's long overdue to have this updated. So,
Thank you. Are there any comments from the public? Okay. And do we have a motion to proceed with said motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7B, we have a motion requesting permission to send said ordinance to legal for review, shade tree ordinance. I'll ask our township manager, again, Tom Petrucci, to introduce.
Thank you. So this ordinance is a direct result of a previous meeting in which the board provided guidance to township staff in order to update the current provisions regarding the Shade Tree Commission. So currently, the enforcement items of the township are non-existent in current township ordinances with respect to shade trees. That was one of the issues that we identified. So what this ordinance does is it creates a comprehensive framework for a new Chapter 330 entitled Trees, aligned with the township's intent for street trees and addressing all facets of their regulation. Creates relevant definitions as needed and references relevant definitions in existing chapters. Defines the permitting process for planting, pruning, and replacement of street trees based upon the existing process with improvements recommended by staff. Defines actions that are detrimental to the street trees that are to be prohibited. Defines tree planting, maintenance, protection, and replacement standards, referencing SALDO standards where appropriate, and requirements for the permitting and inspection of such work. It also defines arboricultural work performance standards and defines compliance with other standards and ordinances, and defines township street tree related activities and funding sources for them. Most importantly, it defines the violation and penalties for the regulations, which again were missing in previous ordinances. So staff has drafted this ordinance and is asking for a legal review with respect to the structure. I want to point out this is for street right-of-ways only. It is not guiding private tree in any aspect. So I'd like to publicly commend Greg Adams, Tom Harper, Herb Bender, Chris Stroller, who all were instrumental in compiling this information together. So we feel it's ready to be sent to legal at this time.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. And I'll ask our planner, Greg Adams, did you have anything to add?
No, that was a pretty comprehensive review of what we're doing.
Very good. I'll open up to the board if there are any comments or questions before we consider to send this to legal for review.
Thank you,
Asma.
Commissioner Kelly. I just wanted to confirm with our solicitor, perhaps, this ordinance, which I support because it fills in gaps that didn't exist before, but some of the, especially the quote penalties associated with this, they will not be retroactive. Is that correct? Or will they be?
I guess when I do my legal review, I can answer that question.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So just to clarify again with Tom, so the board will have opportunity once legal reviews to.
You will have further opportunity to comment at that point. We want to make sure that what we're doing is legally sound. To Brad's question, to Commissioner Osborne's question, there may be times where we actually are going retroactive because a tree is either there or it's not, right? So that's how we're structuring this, but again, that needs to be confirmed by legal counsel.
So, well, thank you. So I'm glad I asked. I think it could be rough on some homeowners, especially those who actually didn't own the home at the time that a violation perhaps occurred. So I think it's a very sensitive topic, but certainly going forward, I support it. So we'll wait for the legal review is what the recommendation is, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody good? Any other comment? Is there any public comment at this time? Anything online, Dave? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to proceed with said motion?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you to all staff for bringing this to us for consideration. Moving on to agenda item 7C, direction, discussion, boards and commissions ordinance. And I'm going to call on our Director of Community Development, Dave Manhart, to introduce.
Yes, so this is a proposed, well, we really want to get direction and discussion before we really dig into it. This kind of came out of the shade tree ordinance because we have the shade tree committee looking at, and then also looking at our ordinance and the zoning ordinance as coming out of the comprehensive plan, looking at ways that we can simplify the ordinance altogether, make it easier for public, staff, elected officials, appointed officials, for everybody to have a better, more logical approach to the structure of the ordinance. So what we have before you tonight is an outline of how we're proposing to restructure the boards and commissions. Currently, what we have is, the big one is zoning hearing board. So the zoning hearing board was in the zoning ordinance. The idea is to take it and put all of the boards and commissions under the chapter that says boards and commissions. And then within that, there's the same structure for every board and commission, where you have, appointments, terms, and things like that, all kind of in the same structure. So what we wanted to do, without getting into like the minutia of all of the text, because there's a lot of text that will be coming, wanted to get feedback on whether you think we're going in the right direction with this, or should we kind of keep it in the separate realms, so to speak.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Dave. My comment would be, I think it's certainly wise to put everything in one section that is easily found by anyone, a citizen, a commissioner, a staff member. My only question, as I reviewed this, which is very well done, and I think that it covers a lot of information for each committee or board. It didn't include all of our boards. Will this document eventually pull in all of our boards and commissions, like civil service and fire appeal and building appeal? And
I think it is wise to do that. One of the concerns is, like, for example, the Building Code Appeals Board is governed by UCC. So, it's currently in the UCC, but we may be able to bring in elements of it for reference. And, we'd have Building Code Appeals Board and then reference the appropriate documentation and statute. And we can do that with all the other boards and commissions. Civil service, I'm sure, is regulated from probably First Class Township Code or wherever it is, so that we do have everything in the same location. And we may just it may be a very short chapter where it just references the statute that governs.
very good, thank you.
I would, just adding on to what Commissioner Kelly said, I had the same question. And I believe there's 4, if I'm not mistaken, boards and commissions that aren't listed: civil service, fire code, building code, and vacancy. I think even if it's a vague reference to those, that way, residents can pull this up and say, okay, here's what we have. Here's the township government divided up into all of its different boards. Again, it can be as vague if it's a reference to, another part of the ordinance. And
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It gives us an opportunity to look at all of the boards. One of the things we found is there's a air pollution board
Didn't know that.
on the statute. Yes. So we're going to kind of go through the ordinance and make sure we're pulling all of the boards, and we may have recommendations to disband some or.
And then my second comment, building off of that, once obviously there's boards that we've never even heard of that might fall in here. Under Article 10 and 11, you have the Community Development Department and Police Department. Was there a reason for not including other departments? Or are they located elsewhere, or why community development and police?
The short answer is they're already in that section. But there are regulations that govern those departments. For community development, there's certain things that are spelled out in the municipality's planning code that should be under community development. So, and when we get into the full text of the document, the intent is to have a source for each paragraph. So in community development, you'll see a lot of MPC. Zoning Hearing Board, you'll see a lot of MPC. And Police Department has something similar. So that's why those two are in there. We can talk about other departments, but they're typically not the state regulations that flow down.
I think to make just one other piece of feedback, it's kind of implied based on the order, but certainly you have your boards and commissions and committees first, and then your departments, which are mostly comprised of staff, listed after that. Just not necessarily mixing them in, just having a distinction. Okay, we have these are the boards and commissions, which are mostly based on membership duties, and then you have staff departments, which are follow MPC and other documents like that. But otherwise, I think it's an excellent outline.
I think it's really well organized. It's very nice to have all the information right there. Thank you for all your hard work. Well organized, well done. Thank you.
Thank you. And, it's also kind of born out of the comprehensive plan process. And one of those implementation items was look at boards and commissions. So, we're continuing to work through that. And, Greg put a lot of work into this and restructuring things. So there's certainly more to come.
Well, thank you, Dave, Greg, and all in CD department for bringing this to us and for continuing to work through the comprehensive plan. Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Very good. Moving on to agenda item 8. A, we have a resolution extending the conditional preliminary final approval granted to a major plan entitled Proposed Flex Building 1215 Houseman Road. And I'll ask our planner, Greg Adams, to introduce.
Thank you. This is an application to develop the property located at 1215 Houseman Road. The plan proposes the raising of an existing barn and construction of a 90,100 square foot flex building, an 89-car parking lot, a truck court, and associated stormwater management facilities on the 10.7 acre tract. The subject property is zoned IC1, Industrial Commercial 1, Special Height Limitation. Well, Lee Butts was the owner, but as of February, it was sold to, I believe, Indus Realty Trust. The plan was granted preliminary final plan approval back on July 21st, 2021 with 20 conditions. A year later, they received a 12-month extension, and that brings us to this point. As I mentioned, February this year, it was sold to Indus Realty Trust. They requested, actually it was their engineer requested another extension to this. We strongly recommend that an assignment from Forge, the prior applicant of this project, to assign all of the project details to Indus happen. And actually we did receive the draft documents for that today, I believe. So that is in process. However, at this time, the project is still owned by Forge. So what we have is two different organizations working toward the same end goal, which is the extension of the approval. By this point, only one of the 20 conditions has been satisfied, but it's a big one, the MPDES permit, because there are wetlands on the tract. So that has moved forward, and I think that will help move the project forward now. So at this point, the applicant has requested, I believe, an extension to December 20th, 2023. Staff recommends they get a full year. As we've seen, things do tend to take longer than what a lot of applicants think it will, and the 12 months will benefit them even if they only take 6 months to actually get it done. So at this point, I believe due to the confusion of two different individuals here, no one has shown up. So I'm going to have to carry the water for this one. They've made their ask. You have my recommendation, and I can be here to answer as many questions as I can.
Thank you for that presentation, Greg. My question, is the applicant agreeable to a 12-month extension?
Yes, the original applicant has signed that. The new property owner has also indicated that they would like that.
Very good, thank you.
And would they be amenable to coming back in 6 months to providing an update? I know that's been somewhat standard with similar projects.
I'm presuming if you require it, they will be amenable to it.
Greg, I have a quick question. The proposal states about the barn being raised, and that was done some time ago.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, do you know where it went? Was it disassembled, reconstructed somewhere else? Do we have any idea what happens to these structures? The same thing on Walbert. We had that barn at Walbert and Cedar Crest. I was just wondering where it goes.
That one, unfortunately, I do not know. Typically, raising permits, while being associated with land developments, are not connected to land developments. So the permit itself is a separate issue, which I don't generally review. We could find that out if you really want to know.
I'm just curious. I'm curious. If it's not too much trouble, I would love to know.
I'll see if they have that on the permit.
Happens, or historically, when there's a property with a barn on it, where does it go? Is it salvaged? Is it repurposed? Is it put somewhere else? Yeah, I've always wondered that, but thank you. Thank you
Sure,
so much.
I'll let you know if I find out.
Questions, Commissioner? Osborne?
Commissioner Kelly, yes. Commissioner Hodges, the barn that you were referring to on Cedar Crest and Walbert, is that right at the intersection? Yeah. I have a little bit of information about that. That was actually taken apart, and many of the beams were saved and used in other purposes, probably another barn, but certainly in other purposes. Yeah. And, the Amish population is very invested in reusing those type structures. And they were, I know they were the ones who deconstructed this particular barn, and it was actually done all by hand. I don't know if anyone actually followed
It was
this.
very painstakingly done. I do remember that.
Yeah, it was done all by hand, very little equipment, which is kind of amazing. But that's how what's the word? How skilled they are in their craft. So anyway, on that particular barn, that actually had a good future, given the fact that it was taken off the property.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Diane, you asked my question. I know a lot of times when the developers come before us and ask for extensions, I ask, is that enough time? And I'm glad that, Greg, you saw that 12 months was better than 6. And so they're not coming back again, asking for it as they've done once before. And also the comments from Jacob on having come back in 6 months to give us an update would be beneficial.
I will pass that along.
Are there any other board comments at this time? Are there any public comments on this agenda item?
I have a comment in the chat from Brian Height.
Sure.
The barn was taken apart piece by piece. So it was probably taken down and restored or rebuilt somewhere else.
Thank you for your
Right.
comment, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, so there are no other comments or questions at this time. Do I have a motion to approve said resolution to extend the conditional preliminary final approval for 1 year
Make a motion.
Second.
with the provision to come back to the board in 6 months with an update?
Correct.
Do I have that motion?
Yes.
In a second. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Moving on to motions, agenda item 9A, we have a motion to proceed with execution of improvements and security agreements for 4741 Chapman's Road Flex Warehouse Facility. And our Director of Community Development, Dave Manhart, if you'd please introduce.
Yes, so this is the 4741 Chapman's Road, the warehouse that was constructed. This is a security release, so for the work that we've started bringing these before the board. So work that's completed, they can reduce their security amount based on work that's completed, based on engineering, inspection, and review. This one is being reduced by 1.6 million. So it's a significant reduction. As you're driving out there, you can see that they are mostly complete with the project. This one has been sitting for a little while, so you might know the dates are kind of old. We recently followed up, were contacted by the owner, and we reminded them that they have this release sitting there unsigned. So they signed it, and here it is. And Tony, if you have questions about specifics of what was completed, Tony's here and can certainly answer that.
Thank you, Dave. I was going to ask Tony if he had any comments.
No, as said, this was actually done back November, December of last year. So there's multiple items that are complete that they probably can request another release shortly. You can do a monthly, but this is from before. They'll probably do one. We're wrapping up final punch list items now with the building.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any commissioner comments or questions on this motion? Are there any from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve said motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to agenda item 9B, we have a motion requesting permission to award bid regarding tank maintenance for the reservoir project. I'll ask our Director of Operations, Herb Bender, to introduce.
Thank you. As discussed in a previous meeting, the township had rebid the water storage tank maintenance contract, which consists of cleaning the inside and outsides of the tank and painting of the PP&L tank. This is a 5-year contract with a service schedule to be followed for the different locations. The first bid, with the board's permission, we rejected all the bids due to the lowest bidder considered non-responsive due to missing confined space form. The other bidders' responses were much higher, and the township felt it was too high and could get better prices. On July 5th, 2023 at 10 a.m., 2 bids were received and opened publicly on the Penn bid site. The bid was downloaded by 38 companies. This bid was advertised in local publication as required by law, and a bid tabulation is attached. As shown on the bid tabulation, Bridgeway Associates was the lowest bidder with a total response of $552,494. And Monin Industries, which was the lowest bidder on the first bid, responded with a total amount of $623,900. The purchasing department verified references provided by Bridgeway and received positive feedback. The township feels confident in awarding the water storage tank maintenance contract to this company. We are respectfully asking the board to award the water tank maintenance contract to Bridgeview Associates. The budget line expense for this project is in the 2023 budget for $50,000. As you can see, when you go through the bid tabulations, the total did come up higher than what we anticipated in the budget by $10,000. To clean the inside and out of the 3 reservoirs, it totals $60,000. But we are trending under budget in this same line item, so there is enough money to cover that $10,000 difference. And just so everyone understands, Monin, they were the lowest bid on the first time when we rejected. When they rebid it the second time, they raised their price by $59,625. With rejecting the bids and the new Bridgeway Associates, they were actually less than Monen's first bid by $11,781.
Very good. Herb, thank you for that explanation. My only question would be on the timeline. I know that we are a few weeks late. Compared to when
Yeah,
wrote this.
we have talked, we're still fine to be done by October, November.
Okay. Are there any other commissioner comments or questions on this motion? Anything from the public? Any questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve said motion?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. Moving on to agenda item 9C, we have a motion to consider sending township representative to conditional use hearing scheduled for Thursday, July 20th, 2023, with regard to Lower Macungie Township Land Development, Lehigh Valley Town Center. I'll ask our township manager, Tom Petrucci, to introduce.
Thank you. I just want to preface that I'm reading from a very comprehensive memorandum prepared by David Manhart. South Whitehall recently received legal notice of a public hearing to be held by the Lower Macungie Board of Commissioners. The applicant, Lanston Equities LLC, is proposing a mixed-use development of 550 apartment units, a 100-room hotel, 70,000 square feet of office space, 65,000 square feet of medical office space, 12.5 thousand square feet of grocery store, 170,000 square foot retail space, 20,000 square foot restaurant, 72 bay mixed use golf driving range, and 60,000 square foot commercial recreation, and a 6-story parking garage. So basically, staff, community development staff reviewed this, as I said, very comprehensively. The magnitude of the proposed project could or may generate impacts for South Whitehall to consider. And Mr. Manhart has identified the following. Lighting from the proposed mixed-use golf driving range could possibly have impacts on properties in South Whitehall. The project could generate traffic that could eventually impact roadways within the township, specifically a connection between Hamilton Boulevard to Shantz Road. Sanitary sewer services will need to be run through South Whitehall Township transmission line to the Lehigh County Authority treatment plant. And a professional services agreement has been established and utility engineering reviews are currently underway. Indirect impacts revolve around roadway improvements that will be required by PennDOT. These have yet to be determined. Township staff continues to coordinate with Lower Macungie staff to obtain plans and other documents related to the project for staff review as the project progresses. With that, I wanted to kind of dovetail that into our options for consideration and then make a recommendation to the board. So the options were to send the alternate township solicitor to attend the hearing as an objector, to send the alternate township solicitor to attend the hearing as an interested party, to send township staff to attend the hearing, or to allow Lower Macungie to proceed with conditional use of hearing and have South Whitehall Township observe and comment during the land development process. I wanted to fine tune that final option and then make a recommendation to the board. So basically, Dave Manhart and I feel it's appropriate to take a measured approach here to work with PennDOT, to work with our neighbors to the south of Lower Macungie, directly with our staff counterparts, and try to amicably resolve any questions or comments or issues or concerns related to South Whitehall impacts and proposed improvements that may impact South Whitehall Township. Specifically, Dave has already coordinated the township attending PennDOT scoping meetings, for example, and providing input there. So we feel as though we can get a very positive outcome for the township by working with our counterparts without sending legal or engineering.
Very good, Tom. Thank you for that comprehensive explanation. And Dave, thank you for preparing the memo, which was very informative for the board. I certainly am in agreement with your recommendation to have our staff work with Lower Macungie on this land development process, but I'll open it to the board for other comments.
Go ahead.
Commissioner
Go ahead. No, you had your light on first. You rang in first.
I'll keep my light on the whole night then. Thank you, Commissioner Kelly and Commissioner Kennedy. Thank you. So, Tom, your recommendation is actually, this is a question, is actually different than the title in our agenda as far as a motion to consider representation.
Yeah, the motion would be to allow staff to work with Lower Macungie staff in community development and as well as any outside agencies that are involved in order to ensure that the interests of South Whitehall Township are protected.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood just, the wording of the motion. My second one is this. So when we talk about matters such as this, we talk about standing. So in that regard, from a legal point of view, does South Whitehall have any legal standing in this issue?
We do, yes. You have the ability to go as an objector, as an adjoining municipality.
What, since we're not, if you're not a resident of Lower Macungie, I'm trying to understand this. If you're not a resident or a business or anything associated with Lower Macungie, how does South Whitehall have standing in this issue?
Dave, my understanding is because we're an adjoining municipality.
Yeah, so we were notified because we were an adjoining municipality. We technically do not abut the property.
Right.
And, you bring up a good point, and I'm sure it would be potentially challenged as to whether we have legal standing, but that would happen during the conditional use hearing.
Let me phrase it this way. I spoke to our alternate solicitor and confirmed that we have the option to go as an objector or as an interested party. The issue of standing was never refuted.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Okay. You answered the question, which I appreciate. And for me, in my mind anyway, and I know we're lacking legal, representation here at the dais for a good reason, but I think the approach that you're proposing is a good approach, given that I think the topic of standing is something that could be called into question.
Yeah, we're also concerned with the accumulation of invoices and expenses related to this as well.
Yeah.
Looking at comparable benchmarking, where we've also sent legal representation, it's another factor to consider.
I mean, there's municipalities who could take a similar position if standing's a question about some of the development happening in South Whitehall.
Yes.
And you don't even have to be adjoining to that township in order to be impacted,
We feel it would be more beneficial to just work directly and have a positive relationship.
And the other piece of this is my understanding is the traffic impact study won't be completed until land development. And that is where the potential impacts really are for South Whitehall Township. And then having the seat at the table for discussions when PennDOT starts talking about what improvements are going to be required is really where I see our involvement as being key.
Very good.
I certainly do agree with this approach moving forward. I'm sorry, did I go in front?
It's okay, go ahead.
Had his light up first.
You want to go?
It's all about the light.
No, I agree with you, David. I did read this, and I think with the scope of this project, standing or not, I mean, South Whitehall is definitely going to be impacted just by the sheer scope of that project. Granted, it's not in South Whitehall, but with traffic and so many other things. I mean, this is just not a warehouse. This is a huge, quote, city within a city. I believe, personally, I'm sitting up here now because of what took place in South Whitehall Township before my time. And I would sure as heck hope not to see that happen again within this township, even though it's not directly in the township, The impact of that development on that size is going to be a major factor down in that end of this township. And it is going to be hell to pay if in fact we don't have a seat at the table, so to speak. And I think the idea, Tom, that you and David sit down with them, on a friendly basis and monitor and see what's going on our behalf is actually the approach to take. Because if in fact it does get worse than that, then we can go in as an objector. But why would we want to start that right off the bat?
Well, to clarify, if, for example, there's only one hearing, you would not have that ability.
I would think that a project of this scope would have more than one hearing.
But I can't sit here and guarantee that to you.
Absolutely, you can. And nobody would cite you for that if that happened. But I don't think that Upper Macungie or Lower Macungie would allow that to happen. I just don't see that happening with one hearing of this scope. I mean, there was years of hearings with something within our own township.
And to clarify, just so we're aligned, we're not talking about, we might go to the hearing and observe at this point, but we're not talking about going and listing ourselves as an interested party or an objector. We're trying to work with staff and ensure and actually get the same outcome that we would have even if we had gone as an interested party.
And I think as our township manager and director of community development, the two of you will know when it's time to do whatever has to be done at that point and bring it back to the BOC.
Exactly. We may
Yes.
bring it back.
Exactly.
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
I couldn't have said it any better. Okay, I was late with the lights, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I agree with the approach. I agree to have a good neighbor is to be a good neighbor. I'm glad you're going to be working with them going forward. And, even with the comp plan, it's just so important to have that interface with our neighbors, our neighboring townships. So, yeah, so thank you very much.
I'll concur with everything that all the other commissioners said, although I would add, I certainly think this is the right approach as opposed to an objector. Certainly, I always think very highly of Lower Macungie Township, their planning commission, their board of commissioners, their staff. They prioritize being a good neighbor, being a good partner. That's evident in the way they've conducted their business so far. And also, having followed this project personally, it seems as though they've tried to work with the developer throughout the land of the conditional use process and certainly at the planning commission stage. So they've tried to be a good partner with the developer. They've always been a municipality that has tried to be a good neighbor to surrounding municipalities. So I think this approach is the right one, and I would feel very confident having staff raise potential issues or work with their staff as opposed to showing up as an objector to the project, which could make for an interesting relationship not only with Lower Macungie Township but also with the developer.
And I would like to add that the interactions that I've had with my colleague Nathan Jones over at Lower Macungie has been great. He's been responsive and willing to share and willing to discuss. So I look forward to continuing that. And, it's lucky that we have a colleague that's willing to work with a neighbor. So it's a great working relationship.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Dave. That's very good information for the board, and I appreciate the efforts of Lower Macungie to work with South Whitehall as well. Are there any public comments on this? Yes, if you'd come up to the microphone. And you'd have to press the button so the light comes on. It's all about the light tonight.
Everything.
There, and if you would just give us your name and address, please.
Keisha Champagne, 1034 Lowell Street. Commissioner Roth alluded to this, but I just wanted to ask outright, do we have a reasonable expectation that Lower Macungie would be open to the staff working with them? Or,
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've already confirmed it. Mr. Manhart and I would never have made this recommendation to the board without doing that due diligence.
Just didn't want to offend. Like, who do you think you are? So cool.
No, very fair question. Well taken. And I just want to assure you, we did take that step.
Thank you for your comment. Commissioner Osborne.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. I have a question, and I'm not sure the answer. If we had, and I've spoken previously about multi-municipal agreements, if we had such an agreement with Lower Macungie, would this have been a little bit easier for us to approach this, or is this a topic totally outside of a multi-municipal planning agreement?
It would be similar because it would run through the same process. I wouldn't envision a and sometimes this happens, it's pretty rare. I don't know if it's actually ever happened in the Commonwealth, but some multi-municipal plans lead to multi-municipal zoning ordinances, which are administered by a multi-municipal zoning hearing board, planning commission. But then when you get to conditional use, you have different boards. And then, so that's why the short answer is I think it would be similar, a similar approach, but we would have coordinated zoning. So during that process, we would have an understanding across municipalities where something like this would make sense. The zone change process that they already went through would have been, I would presume, noticed, and we would have been involved in that rezoning.
So a multi-municipal comprehensive plan would have at least possibly given us a little bit better position of strength in having a voice in this topic, an influential voice. That's what I'm trying to say.
Would have had, when it came to any rezonings, especially if we had joint zoning or there was a memorandum of understanding that allows for coordination of zoning. That piece of it probably we would have been more involved in.
I think to
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Osborne's point, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, this project with a multi-municipal plan or planning apparatus, when it came to the rezoning, when it came to the planning commission stage, which this project has already been through, we would have had influence there. But when it comes to conditional use, we would still be in the same situation we are now.
That was going to be my question. We would still, as a municipality, be looking to examine and minimize, hopefully, the impacts of the stormwater, traffic, lights, the other issues that we would look at as a municipality to protect within our borders.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from the board or the public? So at this time, we don't need a motion, I would assume then, because it's just staff working with staff.
Maybe just to confirm, staff working with staff, to protect the interests of the township.
Make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And if you please keep us updated, of course. It's a very interesting
We will, yes.
process. Moving on to agenda item 10, correspondence and information items. We have meeting dates and current vacancies. And our township manager, Tom, if you would please present.
Yes. Upcoming meetings are as follows. Thursday, tomorrow, July 20th, 7:30 p.m., Planning Commission. Friday, July 21st, 7 p.m., we have a concert at Covered Bridge Park. Monday, July 24th, 10 a.m., Landscape and Shade Tree Commission. Wednesday, July 26th, 9 a.m. is a pension committee meeting. The Wednesday, July 26th zoning hearing board is canceled due to lack of agenda items. Friday, July 28th, 7 p.m., movie at Fernwood Park. Tuesday, August 1st is the Crime Watch meeting, National Night Out. Wednesday, August 2nd is the Board of Commissioners, 7 p.m. All details posted on the township website.
Thank you, Tom. We have nothing under direction and discussion this evening. Moving on to agenda item 12, old business, comprehensive plan implementation update. I'll ask our Director of Community Development, Dave Manhart, to present.
Yes, so I came up with a table that was included in my department report that kind of listed all of the implementation items. I think one thing to note that's noteworthy is with the landscape preservation plan, we have, I think, successfully been able to combine items into one plan. So we have these lists of implementation items, and we've been able to combine them into a single planning effort. So we're going to be taking that same approach with transportation. We're working on developing a scope for transportation planning, a transportation plan that addresses safety plan, multimodal, all part of the implementation items. We're continuing to look at the zoning ordinance, the township ordinance as kind of a result of the comprehensive plan. So we're moving forward. We have on the schedule 3 meetings in August, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Tuesday for the landscapes plan. We're going into more detail on agriculture. I believe the order is agriculture, natural resources, and then historic, where we're going to dive into a little more of the, I think it was the what and the who. So what's important, what are we actually looking to preserve, and who can we work with to accomplish those goals?
Very good. Thank you for that update. I just have one question. The August meetings, will they be posted on the website for the community to?
They absolutely will be.
Okay.
If they're not already, I will make sure they are.
Excellent.
I think they are.
Moving on to agenda item 13, courtesy of the floor. Again, it's opportunity for any member of the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board? Anyone online? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Moving on to agenda item 14, department reports. These are our quarterly reports from all of our township departments. And Tom, did you have a brief overview of?
Yeah, I just wanted to indicate that each department has done an excellent job in submitting the reports. We're doing this a little differently this time. We're not reading them out or summarizing them. So we're simply asking if you have any questions to please email me or ask a question now and we'll get you an answer.
Very good, thank you. Are there any board questions or comments on any of the department reports? Are they posted to the township website under the agenda?
Once they go through the board meeting, yes, we did start posting them on the website now.
Very good.
Yeah.
The only comment I have, I do want to thank all of the departments and all of the staff involved for all the work through this quarter and to bring these concise reports to us. It's a nice picture of the complexity and just how many employees it takes to run the township. And I'm so thankful for all of the unseen people that we don't have here in our public meetings who play a very important role in delivering services to the township. So if you'd pass those along to all of our employees, please. Moving on to agenda item 15, I need a motion to authorize payment of our invoices and disbursements.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no executive session this evening. I do need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.